What the Internet is doing to our brains by Nicholas Carr. So this book was also a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, and it was a very successful book. So I will be analyzing the book chapter by chapter, so you can get a summary of the whole book. The first chapter is called Hal and Me. So at the beginning, he quotes the movie, the Stanley Kubrick movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey, where he quotes Hal, which is an advanced AI, because it's an AI, who says that its brain is going. And the author, Nicholas Carr, is feeling the same way in the recent years because of something or someone has been tinkering with his brain, changing circuits in his brain. He has noticed that his behavior has become fidgety. He has lost attention, concentration. He has started to make a lot of things simultaneously. He has started to multitask, and he has noticed that he very rarely memorizes things he does, things he sees, things he writes, and that reading has never been as difficult as it is now. The linear thinking mind is being pushed aside by a new type of thinking consisting of a short, fast, and concentrated information. It's like we have little bursts of energy coming from the internet. The internet is giving us, or rather today's media is giving us lots of information in fast bits to practically overload us with information. The second chapter is called The Vital Paths. So in this chapter he talks about various mechanisms of the brain. So even before the internet, tools that humans used influenced the way they were writing. We have the example of Friedrich Nietzsche, which was a famous German philosopher, and he was a very sickly man. He had a lot of problems with writing. He was very sick, and when he actually changed from writing manually to the typewriter, he had a special typewriter too, he noticed that his writing had changed. It's like the iron of the typewriter had actually transferred to the actual text of the words. And this was also noticed by other musicians, writers, contemporaries of Friedrich Nietzsche. So in another country, Sigmund Freud, which was practically the father of psychoanalysis, studied the brain, and he formulated the idea of neuroplasticity. A popular idea of the time was that the brain was unchangeable. It cannot be changed throughout the course of life. So Freud observed that the brain changed constantly, even day to day. It always was changing. The neural paths, neurons were changing, were making new connections, were destroying others, were severing other ones too. He noticed especially that when people started to think another way, to use new tools, he saw that behavioral changes happened to the emotional level. The chapter is called Tools of the Mind. So in this chapter, Nicholas Carr continues the explanation of the tools. So every technology is an expression of human will. Since the very beginning of writing to the internet today, every technology has been practically invented by humans. Nothing is natural. So writing, reading, memorizing, everything is unnatural. And when we change the tools we use for new ones, these new tools change the way we think and how we process information. This was especially evident when reading and writing were introduced, let's say, to human culture, people started to approach life in a different way. They started to think in a more deep, not in a shallow way. They started to think on a more spiritual way, on a more conscious way. The fourth chapter is called the deepening page. In this chapter, he goes from the very beginning of writing to today's writing. He starts with the Sumerians and then continues with the Egyptians, to the Romans, to modern writing. Gutenberg is also mentioned to give a holistic approach to this, to the history of writing. As language expanded, consciousness deepened. So, as I said, when people started writing and started reading, everything appeared more more processed. Everything was more thought about. Everything was more talked about. So people started rethinking the way they live, the way how they live, and why they live too. Human is inventing writing is the same as human inventing the internet, or the other way around. Our brains are rerouted. As we see in the next chapters, brains are physically, literally physically, are being changed constantly. So just, for example, just by thinking of writing, some brains have changed their physical appearance and have become and adapted to the situation. A medium of the most general nature. So this is the internet. This is the new invention, a complete game changer. It revolutionized the whole way of thinking of humans. Nothing was the same anymore. It was a new tool, a completely new tool. Nothing like that was ever invented, because it gave fast access to information, a lot of information, gave communication like you can talk to one person in China being in America. It gives possibility to communication. And throughout the years, the internet use grows exponentially. From the start, from the 1980s to today, the average person has been using the internet 4 times as much. So and now it plays a vital role in our life. The most important thing maybe of the internet is that it is bidirectional, so that like television, reading, like books, radio, it's unidirectional. We can only receive information, but with the internet, we can also exchange information. We can give information, we can take it, we can practically be part of the information. We are part of the internet, every single one of us. The very image of a book. Here, Nicholas Carr discusses books. That books have remained popular over the course of more than half a millennium, which is extraordinary. Even today, books are being read, even with the internet, even with ebooks that have gained a major popularity. Reading an ebook isn't the same, because the mind cannot keep concentrated on something that is not natural. Scientists have observed that attention spans for ebook reading is significantly lesser, and memory processing. So people are having problems remembering what they are reading on ebooks rather than on books, which is very interesting. And even if new inventions such as the Kindle or the iPad make ebook reading easy. So Kindle has a special technology which lets the user look at the screen for hours and time, and not to feel tired by looking at the screen, because it has a special technology. We have rejected solitary single-minded concentration. So people are not concentrating on one thing at one time, but with the ebook, which offers many multitasking possibilities because it has hypertext in it. We can click a link in an ebook and go search for other information. And the author gives an excellent example of how he was reading a book, and when he started reading it, he had a different hypertext. So it was text that you could click on to give you information of anything on Wikipedia or on YouTube or whatever. And he noticed that after 20 minutes of reading a book, he had only read actually one page. He was still on the first page after reading all of this information of hypertext. And moreover, he did not remember a single thing he had read in that period when reading the hypertext. This is chapter 7, the juggler's brain. The net is an environment that promotes superficial learning and hurried and distracted thinking. This is practically the whole, this is maybe the best sense to summarize the book. He has noticed that he cannot concentrate on the internet. When he clicks on an article, he and also scientists have observed that people cannot concentrate on the text. They cannot remember what they're reading. They cannot even stop what they're reading because it's addicting. It's a way of learning information that is addicting to the brain. It gives a lot of information at one time, and it practically gives positive feedback to the brain to search for more. The net engages all our senses except smell and taste, but even this is becoming less of a problem nowadays. You have to think, you have to listen, you have to see, you have to talk, everything at once while you are on the internet. If you want it or not, you have to do it because it's just this kind of environment. We have this overload of information coming from the internet. Let's talk about this. The net seizes our attention only to scatter it. So this is practically what this GIF is doing to your mind. So it captures your attention, but you cannot concentrate on one point for much because it already changes. This is what the internet is doing. You concentrate on something, but in the end, you have nothing. As the philosopher Seneca puts it, to know everything is to know nothing. At once, that is. The net causes extensive brain changes. Now this is maybe the most interesting part of the book because he quotes different studies made by scientists that highlight the effects of the internet on the brain. They notice that, for example, people when clicking on some articles, on some news articles, they were not reading in a normal way. They were not going line by line, but they were going in an F shape. They were reading in an F shape. So first of all, they looked at all the lines. Then started from the bottom, or from the sentence that is, and then they just read the first sentence and then moved on to the next article. So the average attention span for an average internet user is to 10 to 15 seconds per article, which is really nothing compared to what we do on newspapers, where people can even devote 20 minutes to an article, reading it and thinking about it. Cognitive load. Now, what cognitive load is? You have short-term and long-term memory. Part of short-term memory is cognitive load. A cognitive load is how much you can memorize in your mind before you just forget it and can take more information at once. If you have like a decent amount of information and repeat it and reread it or repeat it in your mind, so you reaffirm it in your mind, then this short-term memory goes into long-term memory and remains there. You can remember it, it's physically there. But with the cognitive load, what happens is you get an overload of information and the brain just can't keep storing any more information in your mind which is practically an overload. And your mind is like your brain is akin to an explosion at this moment because it just doesn't have any more information and doesn't keep track of it. Every medium develops some cognitive skills at the cost of others. This was especially this is noticed when, for example, people who were deaf, who could not hear, developed their sight was extremely developed. It was the parts of the brain that were so the neurons that were usually dedicated to hearing now were only dedicated to sight. It had so the brain had to completely change what the neurons were used for. And when people went blind, the parts of the brain where that was dedicated to the sight were now dedicated to hearing. The brain is virtually unlimited and infinite information. Of course, it's not infinite, but close to infinite, because an average person in a lifetime cannot, let's say, store all the information or even see all the information that will be on the internet. The Church of Google. Google is in the business of distraction. Now, as you may know, all of you know Google. Google is probably one of the most influential companies in the world, not only on the internet, because it started in the 1990s as a small search engine, but then developed with various techniques, innovative techniques, that gave them an important place in the media world. Oh yeah, and Google is in the business of distraction. They noticed that when people Googled something, they were rarely concentrating on what they were searching, but their eyeballs were more on the ads and more on the propaganda than on the actual text they were searching for. So it's in Google's interest to deconcentrate you, to give you more reason not to look at your text, because in that way you will more probably click on an ad than on what you're searching for, which is profitable to Google. And this gave them immense profits from ads. Now, the moonshot, as described in the book by Google, was to digitalize every book ever made. It's a process that is being made today. At this very moment, they found this new technique with infrared cameras to store every book just by scanning them. And from 2005 to 2011, they had digitalized over 7 million books. The problem is that 6 million of them were copyrighted. So what Google did was, they lost a law case, which cost them $215 million, which was actually nothing for them, because they had become such an immense power. And they made a deal with copyright owners to give them some percentage of a revenue of the ads in exchange to keep the book forever. So to have the right to have the book on the internet, for free of course, but with the use of ads it becomes profitable. What people fear is that it will become a monopoly of Google holding these books and denying us access to information. Because as it is now, Google is a very open company. But what if a new owner comes, or a new idea comes, or something comes up, and they decide to totally block access to information? That would be a disaster. Memorization is useless. We have everything we need in the net, specifically Google. This is the final goal of Google. They want you to go to Google to read their information, to have your eyeballs on their site. Outsource memory and culture withers. So this is a very important sentence. because it's true. A thing like me. And so in this chapter, the author talks about artificial intelligence, AI. He talks about ELIZA, which is the first kind of artificial intelligence ever created. It was an experiment made by MIT professor, and MIT professor, and he created this AI that you ask her, because it's a computer, ask her something and she would give you an answer, or she would ask you something, because, like, for example, you say to her, I have been feeling depressed lately, and she would ask you, why have you been feeling depressed? You would say something, and he would ask you why again, or that he was or she was sorry. People got actually emotionally attached to the program, and the professor's secretary actually was so passionate about the program that she actually thought that ELIZA was not a computer, was not a program, but was in fact a human on the other side of the screen. So that an actual program was behaving like a human and interacting with humans. That alienation is an inevitable byproduct of the use of technology, which is true because today we are constantly on our smartphones, on our computers, on our iPads, and this limits the socialization of humans. We program our computers, but in the end they program us. In fact, this was actually the case with ELIZA, and it was a media uproar because some actually thought that ELIZA would completely change the world, would destroy our lives as we know it, which in fact was not true, but it may be true. It is our own intelligence that flattens into artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is not real, but at the same time it is real. It's a very strange concept because these machines, these programs, have to pass the Turing test. The Turing test is a test which defines if a program is considered a good AI or a bad AI. If, for example, someone is talking to the program and he does not feel that the program is an actual program, then this program has passed the Turing test, giving it practically human-like characteristics. The frenziness of technology threatens to entrench itself everywhere. This is the final sentence of the book, which actually gives a very clear image of what could happen if technology entrenches everything. Thank you.